Right, here we go. We are live now. Right, okay, we're going to do people's news. Ruth, what were you talking about before something happened? Ruth! Oh, for God's sake. Right, forget about Ruth and Kate. Right, Peter, anything you want to say?
They disappeared.
Have they disappeared?
Yeah.
No, nothing from me.
Well, obviously that's why Ruth and Kate didn't want to say anything, because they weren't even there. Which does really hold up something there. You know, oh, right, admit. I can tell this is going to be a bloody long one today, isn't it? This is going to go on forever. Christ almighty. Right, okay then. Anne, have you got any sort of Barry and District news for us this week, please? Let's just put us out of our misery. Let's just go with the flow.
No.
Oh my God, that's a bit of a shock. We should record that, right? And Richard, if you don't change that name, I'm going to put you across my knee and I'm going to smack your backside so hard, right? And I'm going to make Pauline watch and chuck French fries at your mouth to see how many she can get in.
I was going to say,
Right,
like,
Richard.
you got your hair done like Mary Queen of Scots.
I just asked you something, Richard, right? I put something really nice on the screen about you earlier on, and you've done nothing but say nasty things to you know, it's almost as if it's revenge day.
No, he said that his wife.
Coffee this morning, Carl, that's why.
What's that, my darling?
He's had a full-blown coffee this morning. He hasn't just had decaf.
Oh, I tell you what, Pauline, that's really irresponsible. I've got to put up with this bloody clown for the next hour, not you. Don't take it personally, Richard. You do look a bit like a clown some days, particularly when you've got that red lipstick on, but that's life.
I got my big shoes on as well.
The sun's shining and I can't. Oh, I think.
Right, okay, guys. Right, can you two just stop being total and utter idiots and let me get on with this, right? Okay, then.
Right, let's hear about St. Helens.
Barry.
Ruth and Kate. Kate and Ruth wanted to say something. Please, can you say something, Ruth and Kate, before we go on, please? Well, they're not even saying anything now. It's just like it's horrific. This what's going on today. Right. So I'm gonna crack on by reading the following, and it's a nice little ditty that led me on to talking about St. Helens this week. So I had somebody contact me, and we'll sort of keep their name out of this, but their name is Tony, and they said you recently featured the Wenvo Arms Hotel in one of your local history pieces in the Barron District News. So that's two people actually reads the Barron District News. That's great. They've got evidence there. Richard's the other one. Right. The Wenvo Arms was used as a mass centre for the Catholic community before the opening of St. Helens School Chapel in 1892. So I wanted to bring that to you, which was interesting. And eventually, the current church building in 1907.
Hello, are you speaking?
A confirmation service.
Could you hear me?
Yeah, I
guess
can.
so. I beg your pardon. It's taken all this time to get the microphone on. I'm so sorry.
Right, okay. Well, as we're sort of still on introductory stuff, right? Ruth, what were you saying, which was relevant earlier on before something happened? Tell us now.
I'm not going to Scotland, so do you want to do Thursday or Friday? Up to you.
I will be in touch.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just saying.
I will be in touch. Right. Right. As a tiny little bit of a filler, please. Kate, you've got to say something now.
Oh, have I?
Yes, you've got to.
Oh shit.
Oh.
No, it isn't. It isn't news, though. It isn't news. I was thinking again about the St. Barrack's feast day, and thinking that we could have the function room at the West End Club for nothing.
Oh, hang on, tell us more. I want to know more about this. You just can't just spit that. I said, go on, tell us more. Go on, Kate, please.
Well, I think we should celebrate St. Eric's Day because it is, after all, a feast day.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that we could have like a picnic, but you know what? Up by the chapel, but the weather could be dreadful and logistically difficult. But you can have the function room at the West End Club for nothing but a £60 deposit, which you get back, provided people put some money over the bar, that's all. We could have a disco and everything to celebrate St. Beric's feast day.
Right, what you need to do is tell us when the feast day is.
Oh, it's the 27th of September.
Oh,
And this
cool.
year it is a Tuesday, but we don't have to make a late night of it. But it'd be nice to do something. And if anybody else has got other ideas, that'd be great. But I think we should do something.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah, what other towns have their own saint? Not that many.
No, it's our own saint, is it?
Yeah.
Well, Bridgend doesn't have its own saint, does it? Cowbridge doesn't have its own saint.
Well,
Penarth-
Barry does.
Hang on a minute. Penarth doesn't. Lots of these places don't have saints.
That's right. We got our own baby.
Yeah.
I
And
think
nobody
that's-
even talks about
Oh, look,
nobody-
come on. Any excuse is good.
hang on. This is a really nice idea. So it's the 27th of September.
Like I say, this year it's on a Tuesday, but I think we should keep it on the day because that's the whole point, really, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, I tell you what, that's an interesting thing. So what you need to do is look into that date then for us.
Yeah, I'll help with the deposit.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Oh, well,
And it doesn't give us a ton of time, but it gives a certain amount of time.
And you're not, I don't know, do you want Carl to make money out of it or not? Because that's the problem.
Hang on a minute, we didn't even mention money. Let's just
No.
go with the flow and we'll see how it goes. Right, okay,
Right.
that's
Okay,
a good
it's
one.
better for publicity, really, not to
That's
charge
right,
people.
depending upon any
Yeah.
entertainment we could scare up, you might be able to charge people to come.
You could pull.
But
Yeah,
that would be fun. And no self-respecting medieval peasant would let any feast day go by.
no, indeed.
Hang on, who said
He's
Richard
not.
was a peasant?
Yeah, that's all right.
He looks like one anyway.
Okay.
You like
Okay,
one
then.
now.
Anyway, thanks for that today, and also talking feast days, St. Helens Day as well. That she must have a feast day as well. So that's a really interesting. Anyway, thanks for that. Thank you very much for that. So what we are going to do now is we're going to go back to where we were. So so we have this email off a chap by the name of Tony who read my feature about the Wenvo Arms in the Pound District News, and he said that the Wenvo Arms, which we're going to mention today, was a mass centre for the Catholic community before the opening of St. Helens, the school chapel in 1892, and then the final building in 1907. And he's basically saying that he wanted me to do a follow-up to this piece. But he also wanted me to do a history involving St. Helens Church. Now, until I received this here, which is that, I probably would have been able to get my information from a few people that I know go to the church and all the rest of it. But I've now got a full history of St. Helens Church, and I'm still waiting for a photograph, a new updated photograph of St. Helens Church from Kate. So I should be doing that next week. So I want to keep you up to date with what we're doing. So
I got to do another one.
Right. So what happened this week was that I was going to do St. Helens Church, and I decided not, because I wanted to defer to look at a building that was actually demolished in the middle part of August. That was the last Second World War Art Deco entrance into the old military base Atlantic Trading Estate. Now I can probably say that other than one or two buildings, every single building from the Second World War military base has now been removed,
Oh.
except for a watchtower, which we've got in our possession. So that's why I did that this week, because it seemed to be quite fresh. And the other thing as well is Kate couldn't make it this week, and no, Kathy couldn't make it this week. She can make it next week, but I believe Richard's away, so she would need to get over to your place, Kate, and if that's possible. I don't know if Ruth is with us next week, but if Ruth is with us next week, and if Peter does next week, because I wasn't sure Peter was doing this morning, because Peter said last night that he might not be able to do this morning, but he is with us today, so that's great. So if you still want to do next week, then somehow, Kate, if you can contact Kathy, that would be absolutely brilliant.
No problem.
If you could do that. And the other thing as well is I mentioned in a rant at the beginning of this today how an idea that we had to have, it was pop-ups, and we had quotes for it, and we were asked to apply for a grant from the Barry Town Council, and they were all up for the idea, and we said they would be for various, we would have these pop-ups at different locations in Barry, and they would have histories of different localities, and they would pop up in buildings, and we put the quote in there and where we were what we were going to do and what type of stuff we were going to use. And then the council basically said, we reject them on health and safety reasons, so we're not going to give you a grant. So that goes under the water. They reject it because pop-ups are a health and safety risk. And then what do I see yesterday? Pop-ups being produced by the same people who were councillors that blocked this idea in the Barry Town Council, and they're using pop-ups printed by the same company that we're going to print ours. And that's how nasty and twisted things have got in local history and archaeological circles in Barry.
Was it connected to COVID? You know, like, was it just at that period?
No. It was the mayoral grant. And actually the mayoral grant, the mayor happened to be one of these people who actually blocked it, who actually were the people who were actually supporting those names of Shirley and
they didn't want you to be in control of it. That's what it was. It was total
political
prejudice, I think.
Yeah. So basically, Nick and Shirley Hodges, councillors of Barrack Ward, who are also councillors alongside the mayor, who's also a Barrack Ward councillor, who's also Plaid Cymru, Stephen Williams, and all these individuals blocked it. And therefore they use the idea themselves, and I'm absolutely disgusted.
Yeah, I'm disgusted as well, considering you put the schedule in.
Yeah,
you put that schedule in, the plan of it and everything.
Yeah, that's right. And we've made phone calls and all the rest of it. So it is actually quite disgusting what's happened. So,
well, we'll have to protest.
But I do believe that Ruth is going to stand as a councillor in Barrack Ward on the thing that we need a museum in Barry. And thank you for that, Ruth. So we're going to crack on now. That's the politics over and done with. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to look at St. Helens Church, and we're going to show some images. One last thing on the watchtower is that I was going to do an update on the watchtower in the Barron District this week, but unfortunately, you know, I had a few images of Richard and a few images of Tim and a few images of Kate. I need an updated version, a new photograph, a brand new photograph of the watchtower. If somebody can get that to me, a really clear one showing all the damage of it, because all the images that I've got show different levels of damage. But I do believe that in the past few days, the condition of the watchtowers have got even worse. So I need that photograph if somebody can take it. So the first one over to me, that would be great. So all we're going to do, we're going to crack over onto the images and let's crack on. I don't know why things have got... What's that, Rich?
I took one about a fortnight ago and put it on Facebook. I had about 200 odd people, 200 odd comments, views, loads of stuff on it. People offering to buy it and all sorts.
Oh, right. So I might not need to do a piece on it in the Barron District then.
But I
Fair
got a
enough.
photo if you want it.
Yeah, I want it. I want that photo, Richard. I'll do a piece in the Barron District then. If you can get that photo over to me, that'd be absolutely brilliant. That'll be absolutely brilliant. Oh, well done. Well, actually, Richard, you've achieved what we said we wanted to achieve, was to try and get this news out to people. Oh, well done.
Yeah.
But it does heed the question, right? Why nobody else had posted a photograph on there and caused a stink. Oh, well done, Rich. So I got to ask, Rich, was that after we had the conversation, or was it you decided to do it on your own bat?
No, I did it the same. Well, after.
Oh, well done. Well, actually, next time, ignore what me and Kate want to do. You just do it. You had more reaction than we would have had. Well done. Excellent. That deserves a pat on the back. So this today is St. Helens Church, Barry, a brief history of the parish from 1890. And this was published in 2008. And with thanks to the Parish History Committee of St. Helens Presbytery Court Road for this. And it's basically this the Centenary Committee put this together. And it's a really nice history, actually, really nice history. So I think what we need to do is start from, this is actually based on something that Catherine Baudet wrote back in 1990, a brief account of the Barry Catholic mission. And Catherine Baudet says as follows: the modern town of Barry sprang into existence in a remarkably short space of time. As a result, various groups, institutions, and societies, along with the town itself, have found themselves celebrating centenaries almost simultaneously. This has resulted in the appearance of a number of local history publications commemorating these events, which in turn contribute to the history of the town. So she's really referring to, again, 1984, which was only a few years earlier, which her husband Gerald Baudet was also involved in with the Barry Centenary Committee back in 1984. And, you know, that's only a few years earlier. And lots of other people are sort of celebrating things at that time, because this is when Barry is starting to come of age. 100 years. The history of the Catholic community in Britain in Barry, I meant Barry, is no exception. Although there were scattered members of the Catholic Church in the Vale of Glamorgan prior to the middle of the 1800s, it is only with the great influx of population to the Barry area as a result of the building of the docks that there comes into existence a concentrated Catholic community with the makings of a parish. And when you think about it, lots of those navvies came from a place known as Ireland, which would have naturally had a massive Catholic community, and lots of them would have been Catholic as well. So that ties in with what we did last week with the water towers, to be honest with you, and all that gubbins. So the late Mr. Brooks, former headmaster of St. Caddock School, compiled a fascinating history of the parish, from the struggles in the early days to get the needs of the emerging parish met. Again, that goes on with what we were talking about last week. Get the emerging needs of the people of Barry met. This is the spiritual needs as well, and actually more than spiritual needs, educational needs as well. It's having churches like the Wesleyan movement, the Anglican movement, the Catholic movement, that are actually looking after more than just the spiritual needs and educational needs. They're trying to keep people together. You know, Barry is a hellhole in 1890, right? As we experienced last week, water was still being supplied from pumps or muddy pools in the middle of the road, and people were dying. So to have this in the area is huge. right? So from the struggles in the early days to get the needs of the emerging parish met through the continued growth of the community to the death of Canon Cressy, to whom the writing of this history was an important project. Unfortunately, as a result of the death of Mr. Brooke, plans for the publication of the parish history lapsed. So it, you know, we got this nice little history which was eventually produced in 2008. But back to the words of wonderful Catherine Baudet, there can be no more appropriate occasion for the publication of this work than the approaching centenary celebrations for the parishes of St. Helens and St. Michael's. In itself, it is a suitable commemoration of the event, and with the additional material to bring it up to date, this story of Catholic life in the community of Barry should serve to renew the justifiable pride of the parish in its history and in its commitment to the future. And, you know, today I started this today quite negative, you know, talking about the boards and talking about that and stuff. But whatever your thoughts about Catholicism, this was a need. People needed this. And, you know, I'm not really worried whether, you know, you like Catholic churches and so on. This is what people needed. This is what they needed. You know, this is important. This community coming together, you know, these people had needs more than just, as I say, educational, spiritual needs. So this sort of this Catholic growth of belief in the area. And I'm saying this as a I'm not a Catholic, but it's good to get people's from a group of people who drink in a pub, to children who go to a school, to people interested in history, people interested in Catholicism. This is all relevant to our local history. So a nice little bit of history here, and this is so if we move on, Father Bruno. It's a great name, isn't it? That's his name, Father Bruno. He was rector of Cardiff from 1857 to 1859, and rector of St. Peter's, Cardiff, from 1862 to 1865. St. Peter's, Kyra, nice. There's the link there. After the Reformation in the 1500s, so we're talking about 1540, around there anyway, Catholic worship disappeared from the Vale of Glamorgan for about 3 centuries. Well, and that's not exactly true, is it? People remain Catholic, but they had to hide it. So actual worship in a Catholic place of you know, actually what I'm going to say is I'm going to actually vaguely correct this, because there's a tiny little church in the Vale of Glamorgan called Clemenston, which is in the middle of nowhere, which is in a field in the Vale of Glamorgan, which I took a group of you guys 2 years ago, and I'm absolutely convinced that may have actually been a small Catholic church, but I'm not exactly sure. But people did actually continue to worship Catholicism instead of being in a building, but in their own homes, but as a faith gathering together. And that was no more for some years, until a great tragedy elsewhere was instrumental in bringing it back. Well, let's just move on. In 1846, 1847, there occurred the Great Famine in Ireland. So those years of the 1840s, there were other famines in Ireland before that and after that, but the one of 1846, 1847 was huge. It says here, forcing thousands to seek a living in other lands. Well, we're going to say millions, actually. Figure was in the millions. Not exactly sure it was in 1846 and 1847 that the millions left, but over a period of time, the figures goes into the millions that left Ireland over a period of time due to famine. And among the places where they sought refuge was the fertile farming region between Cardiff and Barry, which happens to be the Vale of Glamorgan. But again, the biggest influx is when Barry itself has got the dock. They found work mainly as agricultural workers and domestic servants, and they brought with them the traditions and practices of the old religion. And can I add to that as well? I will also add mining, because the Irish were good bloody miners, right? They could mine. Okay, it was in their blood to go out there mining, which is again a very, very important point to think of mining up there as part of a reason why people came to the area. And you want to say something?
Well, they were hard workers, they had a lot of experience of working for nothing, basically, in the famine. And, they were tough old bunch. Do you know, they found
Oh, no,
somebody in the famine that had
Yeah.
died, and they were still alive, they stayed alive for so long,
Yeah.
without any food. The whole insides, they lived off their own insides, Well, what I'm
Yeah.
saying is that they were very tough and
course,
hard
Dan.
workers.
Bloody hell, Anne. Thanks for sharing that. But it's
Well,
just
no,
not.
it's this book
Yeah.
I'm reading at the moment.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
it-
Yeah. No, I appreciate you saying that, and I will also say as well that a point that people fairly ever make is that this is talking about going to. This is talking about coming to the Vale of Glamorgan and for the agriculture, and I'm saying also going to the valleys for initially the iron,
Yeah.
and then now after the 1840s, we're talking about the influx needed for the coal mining, and it was far safer to work down a coal mine than it was to work in agriculture,
yeah, I bet.
because machinery coming in,
Yeah.
threshing machines and sort of all that new contraptions. You put your hand in at the wrong time, you've lost your hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Mm.
anyway, these immigrants had come from a country where almost everyone was Catholic. That's the point I was making.
Yeah.
But now they were a small and scattered community working for farmers and landowners who must have viewed their religion with some incomprehension, though seldom, it appears, with hostility. So new people coming in, we needed them. So just let's get on with it. There were no Catholic churches or chapels for them, and or clearly that we can identify, and no resident priests to minister to them. Well, that's a big one, unless a priest came over. And indeed, they had to wait some years before even a visiting priest came among them. Or if a visiting priest did come among them, we don't know about it. There we go. We'll leave that there, in absence of evidence and all that. Meanwhile, the more heroic and able-bodied walked all the way to Cardiff for Sunday Mass, sometimes carrying baskets of farm produce for sale in the Monday market. So you can imagine, I can see this.
Yeah.
You go to Cardiff. Yeah, this is typical Irish, isn't it, Anne? You can see it now. You leave your stuff outside the church, right? You go to Sunday Mass, and the next day in the morning, you sell your goods and you walk all the way back.
Yeah.
I'm liking it. And the Monday market would have been early as well, wouldn't it? Sort of early hours. So that would make perfect sense. I'm liking that. I like that little bit of information. This is a good document, really, isn't it? I'm enjoying this. It was in 1862 that the first visiting priest came down from Cardiff, and it's this guy, Bruno, to bring mass, the sacraments and religious instruments to the scattered flock. The only record we now have of this period is contained in the all too brief reminiscences of Daniel Holland, printed in the magazine of St. Peter's Chair in 1889. He recalls that the first priest to visit them wasn't actually Father Bruno. Father Bruno was actually the main one, but the first priest to actually visit them properly was a Father Nedelec, a Breton by birth and a member of the Fathers of Charity. Among those whose houses were first used for Catholic worship were James and Catherine Barry of Penmark, Jeremiah and Mary Daly of Penmark, and Thomas Roberts of Fontegary. So visited people's homes. A small levy was agreed on, 6 pence a quarter for each family, to defray the priest's travelling expenses. You can imagine him on his horse and trap. So that was the sort of first sort of scattered priest, the first main priest that I was talking about, the first one, the first big one really in all of this story, the one that the proper big one from Cardiff, is Father Bruno. So the next visiting priest, Father Bruno, who came down regularly from Cardiff to say mass for some years at Llanbethery in the Vale of Glamorgan, which would have been a hellhole to get to. A hamlet almost exactly halfway between the two biggest Catholic groups, those of Penmark and Langford. Father Bruno was deeply attached to his people, and they in turn were touched by his zeal in visiting the sick and dying, even in the depths of winter. I don't know how that worked, to be honest with you. Somebody must have rode into Cardiff to say, look, Father Bruno, my mum's dying. So he would have come back with them. You know, that's great.
Yeah.
Maybe they took him back, you know, as a thank you. That would make sense. It really does. At a time when only part of the journey could be done by train. So, you know, when you think about it, and also, you know, Llanbeddary isn't exactly. It's close to a train. It's close to a train station, but not exactly there. And you'd have had to get to the train station in the first place. You'd have to get to all the links, and before the trains. Before any set service in the Vale of Glamorgan train service, you'd have had to have done it, as I said. You know, somebody would have had to gone to Cardiff to sell, and you'd have had to got them to Barry. It was during this time that the Daniel Holland noted in his work in 1889 in St. Peter's Chair that the levy went up to 1 shilling a quarter for each family. So 1 shilling, so that's 4 shillings a year for each family. Other priest follows a certain Haid, Clark, and Berg, who were all stationed in Cardiff. After them came the much loved Father Helens, whose visits were remembered with pleasure. Long after he ceased to work in the Vale, people recalled his great kindness and his custom of supplying them with books and papers of Catholic interest. So at the time, when you think about it, when you know, you're thinking that a Bible would have been quite a valuable instrument, quite a valuable document. They would have had little missals actually, rather than full works. But in later years, of course, many of his original flock were happy to meet him again in the newly founded parish of Barry. So in other words, he went all the way to sort of the middle, well, not the middle of the Vale of Glamorgan, but Llanbeddary, between Langford and Penmark. And as a thank you for them coming to Barry, he would do a quarterly mass in Penmark, which became a traditional event towards the end of the century. So in other words, you know, they supported him.
Yeah.
So we would go out and see them, which is great. I think that's sort of a great sort of link, a sort of a great sense. So when we think about this chap, Father Hyland, his name does come up. It comes up again, and you know, it sort of comes into play when we look at the Wenville Arms. So we're gonna look at that in a few moments. It was in the early it was in the early 1880s, however, that the situation was completely transformed following the decision of a group of South Wales merchants and pit owners to build a docking competition with Cardiff and Barry for the export of their coal. And where does this go? For this, they chose the almost uninhabitable area of the coast near Barry Island. And in less than a decade, the town of Barry had been established with not a few dozen people, but thousands of people. As we know, the rate of growth in population was almost without precedent. The census of 1881, as Richard would tell us, the Barry population was 85 people occupying 17 houses. That's all.
Yeah.
16 years later, as we know, we've said this figure before, 16 years later, Barry had a population of 28,000 people. And as we know, 16 years later, right, with 4,200 houses, they needed sanitation and fresh water. And we mentioned that last week. So this is all nicely flowing together. I'm liking this. It's great. Thousands had flooded into work on the construction of the docks and the building of the town itself. And many of these were from where?
Sorry?
Come on, Anne. They were from Ireland. Irish labourers, far more numerous than agricultural workers who had come into the area 40 years earlier. So in other words, a few, 40 years earlier, a few Irish people coming over, fewer Irish families. But now it was coming into the thousands, I think the figure was 3,000 at one stage, 3,000 navvies, 3,000. Where were you going to chuck them all? Exactly. And some of those thousands would have been Catholics. probably a large proportion of them stayed as permanent residents. It was quite different from what had happened in the Vale, where scattered Catholics had never really established themselves as a community. But Barry, they did establish themselves as a community. In Barry, they had no choice. They had to live here because they worked more or less every day, didn't they? So the urban Catholics were, within a very short time, in a position to speak with one voice in asking a Bishop Headley of Cardiff to send a priest to live permanently in their midst. So in their midst. So, you know, we remember our wonderful Highland, right? And what happens there is that what they needed, however, was a leader and spokesman. And in this respect, they could hardly have been more fortunate. In 1886, there arrived in Barry a young Catholic Irish doctor, a certain P.J. O'Donnell, whose energy and leadership were to play a vital part. Oh, I've gone to Dorset, haven't I? In the foundation and later development of the Catholic parish. Started okay with my Irish accent, I've got to say. From the very outset, it was clear to Dr. O'Donnell that the needs of the growing Catholic population in the town could not be served indefinitely by priests travelling from Cardiff and Penarth. They needed a permanent one. Even so, he persuaded the bishop to allow mass to be said at his house, O'Donnell's house in Calixton, of all places, until some better arrangement could be made, so establishing a useful precedent. Now, one of my first pieces in looking at Barron District News was about Robin's Lane. The house is still standing at the upper end of Robin's Lane. So there we go. Robin's Lane. So the first sort of real Catholic place of worship in Barry, proper, you know, back again, you know, we got Catholicism back, was actually in O'Donnell's house, Robin's Lane. So the first mass was said there on Low Sunday in 1887. And when is Low Sunday?
It's after Easter.
Okay, so May. All right then.
Yeah.
Maybe, or April. No, around there.
I don't know, April. I don't know if
It could have
it's before
changed.
or after. I don't know if it's before or after.
The date could have changed. The date could have changed.
Time.
Soon afterwards, Father Highland, we're back to Father Highland, became the visiting priest. And it was not long before he and Mr. O'Donnell, and perhaps others, had drafted a letter of petition to Bishop Headley, setting out reasons why Barry should have its own resident priest. Now,
This
was
is
it
the
to
same
come?
as Bridgend. Bridgend did exactly the same, and they walked to Cardiff for mass.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it was all the small towns who didn't have churches, you know, because I when I came to Pencoed, there was no church there at all, and it still isn't. But
No.
in Barry, there is at Bridgend, there is one, and I'd never seen it before, you know, because I'd come from a big town. We had a Catholic church in every parish, you know, and I didn't realise that it was so, you know, discriminated against, you know, in Wales, in West Wales, you know, and
Yeah,
and
no.
because basically, you
East
see,
Wales.
the Catholic Church, the Catholic administers Holy Communion, and the Catholic Church still believes the Holy Communion is the body and blood of Christ. It's not just an idea, it really is. And in those days, they really did believe. So it was like a panacea, you know, it was like magic, really. And that's why people didn't like them, because it seemed, you know, what's the word? Uncivilized, you know.
Odd. Eating Christ, odd.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So, but you know, they were highly educated, the priests, and they brought a lot of good to communities, you know, through the schools.
Yeah,
Anyway, that's later on.
No, and that's the point I was trying to make. It's not, you know, that is exactly the point I was saying. It's not just thinking about Catholicism for, you know, religious reasons. It's like bringing a lot more than just schools and stuff.
Yes.
You know, I gotta be honest with you. Let's just talk about human needs. These people came to a town with no sanitation, no water, really no houses to live. Some of them were far away from their families. Some of them were basically children sent out to sort of make a buck. They had nobody, and it's like that sort of. Then they get together as a community. That spiritual need, that's really important.
Yeah.
You know, and the point that was made earlier on that we've totally forgotten now is Kate was talking about let's have this sort of celebration, you know, St. Barrack's Day on the 27th of September, West End Labour Club. Thought that was a great idea, but what is that about? That's about people coming together,
Yeah.
right? That's not necessarily you know, top of the world here, sir, you know, we're going to see Jesus on a cross and all the rest of it. It's about people
Yeah.
coming together. It's a need. It's a community thing. Very important, very important. Right, anyway, let's crack on. So here we go. So the petition itself gathered 450 signatures in 1887. That's probably going to be the entire Irish Navy community. Well, part of it anyway. All those who could actually, that's the thing, you see, a petition with 450 signatures that some people couldn't read and write, so they didn't have a signature, so they didn't go down on the list. So this was people who could actually read and write, or they had a signature. Collected in the barrier area, an impressive indication of Catholic feeling. The result was very gratifying. The bishop wrote back in the October of the same year, 1888, promising that Father Hyland would be installed as parish priest as soon as it could be arranged. 1888. And here it may be of interest to quote the main point set out in the position. Right, and you've already said one, but here we go. The three points for having a petition. You've got to have points in a petition. So you go, first point, the distance between here and Cardiff, the inconvenient mode of travelling, and the disagreeable people the priest has to endure during the journey, and the unseemly crushing he has to take in to get back to Cardiff by bus on Sunday. So in other words, he had to obviously bus transport is basic about horse and trap.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, well, he's got to cram in with everybody else, and you know, he's had a busy morning. It's a lot. So that's one reason. In case of a sick call, when the message is sent by telegram, that's how they knew somebody was sick. But then again, in these villages, and like Lamblethery, they wouldn't have had the telegram system, would they? They would have to go on somewhere else. So when the message is sent by telegram and reaches the priest in time for him to come by the next bus, he cannot be with the dying person in less than 2 or 3 hours. And if the call should come from some outlying districts, the time would be increased to 5 hours. If the sick call occurs at night, the messenger has to go from here on foot. That's the thing, but foot had to go all the way to Cardiff, as there are no cabs for hire, and from 7 hours must elapse before the priest can be here at minimum. And the expense of coming would be considerable, from 12 to 20 shillings, according to the part of the district he would have to visit. So that's a lot of money to get to somebody, and that needs to be paid for. And lots of these people were poor, you know. I know relying upon the poor, Anne, you know, the poor fund, but you know, if you've got several people dying in it, and it's a lot.
There's no resources. There's no resources, is there? And of course they want the last rites, don't they? They do
want the last rites. They need to be raised to go and sit alongside our Lord. So the great advantage is it would be to the congregation to receive Holy Communion more frequently than we can at present, as having to walk some distance to fast till after 11 o'clock mass makes it impossible to any but the strongest of us. So in other words, these people have worked all bloody week, right? They haven't got much food anyway. They're paid really bad wages. They're having to go to mass on Sunday, right? They're going to be too exhausted, and when they get to church, they could probably fall asleep. So this is all not the thing that people want. The bishop, in his letter to Dr. O'Donnell, Callaxton, O'Donnell, Callaxton, the bishop, in his letter to Dr. O'Donnell, Callaxton, Robin's Lane, concerning the proposed appointment of Father Hyland, went on to emphasise that the next task for the Barry Catholics would have to be the provision of a Catholic school, a project which the young mission was to carry out in a remarkably short time. So this Dr. O'Donnell is saying, look, we need this Highland bloke, right? There's so much to do. There is so much to do. The bishop, in his letter to Dr. O'Donnell concerning the proposed appointment, Father Highland, set about looking for a suitable house in Cadoxton for Father Highland, who eventually arrived a little later than he had been hoped, towards the end of 1889. So in other words, with this Catholic community coming in, they had to wait. This was 1888, October. They had to wait until the end of 1889 and went to live in Beatrice Road. He later lived in a cottage in Halton Road, and by 1892, he was in Guthrie Street. Should have had a little map where all these are in Barry, but that's life. But there was still no church, and it was left to the proprietor of, and what's this? The Wenvo Arms Hotel.
Oh,
The Wenvo Arms Hotel. This is it.
oh,
So the proprietor of the Wenvo Arms Hotel, the Mr. Henry Chappell, which is quite a strange name, Chapel, with 2 P's, 2 L's, to solve the problem of providing a temporary venue for Sunday services. And the irony of this is not lost on me. I've got to be honest with you. It's a pub and a hotel.
yeah.
But then again, it's Catholicism being more sensible than maybe Congregationalists or Wesleyans who would have, or temperance people, you know. They
Well,
would have stunned at this, you know. There's no way.
yeah.
So, and also, you know where you're going to get your bottle of wine from.
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
no.
it would have had to have been sanctified first by the bishop. But you know what I mean? And fine, if you'd run out. He offered the use of an assembly room in the hotel, known at the time as the picnic hall, which served on Sundays as a magistrate's court.
Oh, it's not a care home now, is it?
No, it's a bloody, it's a
still a pub.
supermarket. It's a supermarket. It's a
Oh.
supermarket. Well, it's not been, it's only been closed, but I think about a couple of decades. It's not been closed long. It's now it's a great old building actually, but it's luckily it's used, all of it it's used, so that's great.
Oh.
So anyway, carrying on. So it was used on a Sunday as a magistrate's court and as a dining room during the rest of the week. This arrangement struck one contemporary worshipper as being worthy of comment. Here we go. Let's do it. You know what this is going to say, don't you? After being used for secular purposes all the week, it is hurriedly prepared for the celebration of the mysteries on Sunday morning. The altar is erected on the platform used by the magistrates, and as the priest offers the adorable sacrifice, he has the prisoner's dock immediately on his left. So in other words, he's preaching from the prisoner's dock. And you can't get more Barry and Cadoxton than that. I gotta be honest with you, that is so Barry. That is so gay, as we would say. That's so Barry.
Oh, is it Cadoxton? Is it Cadoxton?
Cadoxton, yeah.
Oh,
That actually,
I
and
thought it was in Wenvo.
and you know where we used to get our bit of sausage, right?
Yeah.
We used to pass this,
Oh,
and yeah, to go to that guy. You used to give him a
Yeah.
name, didn't you? Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, cracking on, I've lost the plot. We have been fortunate in finding an illustration of the Wenvo Arms. And hang on a minute. Let's just get this right a minute. Well, this is dated. This is dated 1900. This one, but it goes on to say, we have been fortunate in finding an illustration of the Wenvo Arms as it was in the early 1900s. It's 1900s. The location of the room where the mass was said is not known. Right, so in other words, the picnic hall, which one that is. However, and a contemporary reference to a remarkable room on the farther side of the hotel front gives no exact location. So we knew, you know, we're sort of, it's there somewhere in the building. It's quite a big building. And it goes on to say that what we have is a little indication of some of these people eventually coming this way to this building, which we're going to do now. So lots of what we've already mentioned are thanks to a certain individual called Diane Brooke, right? And what I'm going to do is we're going to mention these little things about the Irish population in a few moments, but a little bit more about our Peter O'Donnell, who was the guy who managed to get our father over to Barry. Oh God, I've got to get his name. Our father Highland to Barry. So O'Donnell, it's a bit about O'Donnell who managed to get Highland and Catholicism up and running in Barry. This is about him. He was not only a leader of the Catholic community, but very active in the development of the town. This is O'Donnell. From Barry, the centenary book, the book that came out in 1984, we learn that he was chairman of the Barry Cycling Club in 1895 and a founder, member and captain of Cannockston Cricket Club in 1887.
Oh.
We had a cricket club in Barry in 1887. Great. He was chairman of the Barry Urban District Council on 3 occasions. He was quite high up. And it's also said, thanks to Jonathan Hicks, who's a local historian, he said in his own book, Barry and the Great War, 1914 to 1918, another officer was reported wounded. Lieutenant Hugh O'Donnell of the 17th Battalion Welsh Regiment was the youngest son of Dr. O'Donnell. Barry Doc had been wounded in action, so that was his son. He was seriously injured by machine gun fire in the thigh. His eldest brother, Lieutenant O'Donnell of the 12th Battalion Welsh Regiment, was wounded some weeks previously at Salonika. Lieutenant Neil O'Donnell died of his wounds at No. 2 Red Cross Military Hospital at Rouen on the 4th of February 1917. So 3 of his sons went into war. He was thought to be making satisfactory progress for some days. That's his Lieutenant Neil O'Donnell. But a week before his death, his condition became worse. His father had proceeded to France and was present at his son's death. And also at the interment in the British Cemetery at Rouen. That's quite amazing that his father actually was there for the burial of his son in Rouen in 1917. That's quite amazing. So we've got this here. So Youth for the Mass Centre of Christianity prior to the building of the school chapel, which we've got an image of in 1892. So this view is from Cannockston Station, roughly in around the early 1900s. So the other image is the school that would be built, but this is a smaller school to the later school that was built in 1907. So if we look at this, St. Helens School, which opened as the school chapel in 1892, Mass was celebrated here until the church was completed in 1907. The altar was set up in the head teacher's office, which had sliding doors and a step above the classroom level when on a Sunday. So, you know, this is all improvisation until 1907. But thanks very much for this to be used, and you know, the Wenvo Arms Hotel to be used for 3 years, thanks to Mr. Henry Chappell. Now, this next stuff links in with what we're talking about, you know, Catholicism in a local area. Thanks to the researches of Diane Brooke into the 1851 and 1861 census returns for the area, we can form a fairly accurate idea of the numbers involved and the localities where they settled. Penmark and Langford head the list, each accounting for about 70 Irish immigrants by 1861. Next comes Cannockston by Barry, as it was then called, with 30, followed by Merthyr 16, Bonveston 12, Pendoilen 10, and Porthcurry 7. So in other words, this gives you an idea of the number of immigrants from Ireland in the area by 1861. Small numbers, really. Smaller numbers are found scattered throughout the area. The town of Barry was not in existence in 1861. It was basically a little village or hamlet, and the Irish population in the area numbered no more than 3, 2 of whom were employed as servants at Castle Farm near Barry Castle. So, according to Daniel Holland, who was writing this work at the end of 1889, Father Hyde said mass in the houses of Jeremy Murphy, Daniel Holland, Owen McCarthy, Lawrence Discall, and Dennis Regan, all in Penmac. So individual masses that they paid for. Father Clark used the same house for some years, and Father Berg used Lambethry as a mass centre, as we know. We know about that one. And what we've got is, you know, the original petition existed until 1933. I want to read this out. Here we go. Father Quigley refers to a letter in the St. Helens magazine for April 1933. Among the papers in possession of Dr. O'Donnell is a faded sheet of foolscap containing the petition drawn up sometime in the year 1888. This is the petition that we need a priest in Barry, though no date is attached to it. The present whereabouts of this letter, if it still exists, is not known. So in other words, that would be a holy relic, I think, if that could be found. But that document, that would be definitely, you know, yeah, but that's life. According to an article in the magazine St. Peter's Chair, Father Hyland was still travelling down from Cardiff as late as September 1889. And obviously, he was in Barry after 1889 at this locality, a year after the bishop had given a favourable response to the petition. The young mission is without either school or church or resident priest permanently until the late 1889. The priest having to attend from Cardiff a distance of 9 miles. And I can tell you that having to walk from Cardiff Road all the way into the centre of Cardiff would usually take me about 3 hours. But I remember running into Cardiff one day. I managed to run into what was that? How long did it take me to run into Cardiff, Anne? I can remember telling you, was it an hour and 45 minutes? I managed to do the 9 miles into Cardiff running.
I don't remember that. I remember you walking from Langford to Barry.
Yeah, I used to get on the train to see Ruba Tuba. I used to run into Cardiff. I used to usually leave my flat on Cardiff Road roughly about half past 3 in the morning, and I get to the train at 5:15 to get the 5:15 train to Reading, and that it used to take me an hour and 45 minutes to run into Cardiff.
Oh,
is that good going?
yeah. I mean, I didn't realise that you were so keen. Well, I did.
I used to see Ruba Tuba twice a week.
Oh.
So what I'd like to do is, you know, it would be obviously it's getting on a little bit now, and I'm just trying to pick something out of here. So here we go. We're going to go directly to St. Helens Church. There's more information here, but if we go to this is rather interesting. This is the document that is about. So if we look at that building when that was opened in 1892, this is the document before obviously the church was opened in 1907. Court Road, Barry Dock, opening of the new school chapel. And there we go. On Monday, the 9th of May, 1892, the Right Reverend J. Headley and J. Headley, the Very Reverend Williams, and the leading clergy of the district which would be our friend which would be our leading Kurdi would be Highland, wouldn't it? So
Yeah.
and the leading
I've heard
Kurdi
of his name.
Highland, Hyland,
I think
will solemnly open the new school chapel, preach and celebrate the Pontifical Mass. Divine service will continue at 11 a.m. Admission front seats, £1. Oh my God! Hang on a minute, let's just start again. Admission front seats, £1.
Yeah.
Second seats, sixpence.
Oh
my God, there's been money to be made in this. Right. On that feast day thingy, Midgig, on the 27th, we'll have a full mass in the West End Labour Club. We can make a fortune. The best train for this is an interesting note at the bottom of that. You can't see it really. The best train for visitors from Cardiff is that leaving the GWR station at 9:54 a.m. and arrives at Cadoxton at 10:18, where if the weather be favourable, it is proposed to form a procession to meet the bishop. I'm loving this. Oh, hang on a minute. There's something else about this as well. A public luncheon at which the bishop will preside will be held at the Whitchell Hotel, Barry Road, Cadoxton at 1:30. And the tickets, no, this is definitely money making. The tickets are £2 and sixpence.
Yeah.
Got to be,
Yeah, I mean,
money's got to
well, the thing is, Catholics have got to pay for their own priests and their own, organisation. Each parish has got their own money. It's still the same.
Exactly. And I want to call it.
Yeah. Sorry.
I want to call it a day soon, but this has gone. It's gone really well, and I just want to read out the last bit actually, and we'll mention about this stone, and we'll call it a day. Great efforts were made, and in less than 2 years, thanks to part to the helpful attitude of the Wenvo estate, an acre of land where St. Helens Church Presbytery and Infant School now stands was acquired, and on this they built their school chapel initially. So obviously now today you've got the presbytery, which is obviously where the father and everybody else sort of gathers and lives and stuff. You've obviously got the church and you've got the infants. Now stands was acquired, and on this they built their school chapel, intending later to put up a separate school. The local newspaper, the Barry Dock News, which always gave generous coverage to such matters, gave a full account of the ceremonial opening of the school chapel by Bishop Headley on Monday, the 9th of May, 1892. The paper contrived also to praise the architectural style of the new building, describing it as being of domestic Gothic, pleasing in appearance. So domestic Gothic, right? All right, okay. Not exactly sure that's Gothic, but yeah, right then. It's definitely domestic. I wouldn't describe that though. An estimate more polite than accurate. Yeah, we got that, definitely. Nevertheless, there was accommodation for 240 pupils. Flipping heck. During the week, they must have taken it in turns, and room for a fair-sized congregation on Sundays. Well, we know what happened, don't we? If we remember that, it was the school. So they basically used. Oh, what was that? They used the office, didn't they? As the yes, and I can't.
I think it's only like the headmistress's room.
The headmaster's room, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean.
So anyway, cracking on. It had cost £1,700. That's the amount of pension that Kate gets every week, and represented a very considerable achievement for a community which had a resident priest for only 4 years. So in other words, that guy that guy,
Highland. Oh no, he was the
Highland,
bishop.
right, whose name I keep forgetting, that Highland achieved massive amounts with the support of Bishop Headley in Cardiff and the support of our friend Dr. O'Donnell.
Yeah.
Right, Dr. O'Donnell. And what we're going to do, we're going to finish this, wind this up. Obviously, more about this in the Baron District, but I've been set the task to write an article about this in the Baron District of only 400 words.
It's a shekel. You-
Shekel. I got
Oh,
a
Leonard.
shekel.
Leonard
Shekel.
Eliza Shekel. Oh,
So St. Helens Church followed one of the foundation stones being laid on the 14th of September 1906 by Eliza Shekel Leonard.
Oh, right.
And the building was completed in about, actually, do you know what we're going to do, right? I've already told you it was opened in 1907, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to ask you to guess, but it only took 7 months. 7 months to build it. And
Mhm.
interestingly enough, this is an interesting point. It cost £1,150 to build, which was less than the construction of the first school chapel. Right. So I'm rather interested that the church cost less to build than the chapel, when in fact this is more ornate. It may have been that lots of people were giving up their time free. That's why I'm reading into that. That may have just been the materials people do. And actually, by that point, and you've got navvies, haven't you? You've got all sorts of people who can build. So they probably said, "Well, I'll give a week.
I know,
I've got a week off." You know.
I know that the parishioners built our first church in Newport. It was only a tin a tin tabernacle, but they got this, they disassembled it and reassembled it.
And why not? And this is
And my grandfather was a carpenter, and he did quite a lot in it, because he was retired.
And actually, Anne,
And he was from Ireland.
on the basis of early Catholicism, right? This is how Catholic churches were built. People would bring a contribution, and actually, strangely enough, it could have been the other way around. Maybe all the materials were donated, and the £1,150 was used for were architects and people, So I'm sure an architect would have given their time free. Do you know, that figure looks so small, £1,150, so small when you think about the construction of other churches.
All the non-conformist churches are the same. They're all built by their own parishioners and things like that, like the Baptist and the Pentecostal and all those. They had a similar history, really. But
you don't think about that. You don't think about that when you think about cost, really, do you?
No, but no, I think people did help to build them. Yeah.
So finally, Bishop Headley presided at the opening ceremony on the 28th of April 1907, no doubt remembering the time less than 20 years earlier when he had come down to administer confirmation at the Wenvo Arms. There was a pontifical mass in the presence of a very large congregation, and we note that there was a string band led by Mr. Arthur Roberts to accompany the hymns. And this unusual form of accompaniment continued in use for many years at the 11 o'clock mass on Sundays and at evening benediction. Benediction. Oh, sorry, I got benediction. That's right. So weirdly enough, I'm going to make one point before we talk about this stone, and that's it. It's one final point. Is that my mother-in-law Jean followed in that tradition of being in the choir. So they've had a choir from day one. Finally, the foundation stone of St. Helens Church. This lady, it's a lady, Eliza, was born in Wellington, Salop on the 22nd of November, 1864. Her father, Thomas Leonard, was a railway engineer from County Roscommon, and her mother, Eliza, nee Shekel, was a dressmaker from Aberkenfig. Their connection with St. Helens is not known, but
Wow,
it's
wow.
a stone, it's history. And on that note, we're going to
Mm.
close the book. And I tell you what, right, don't envy me to be able to write an article in the Barron District on this, because it's just like, yeah, I'm
No.
being challenged to write something in 400 words. It said, best of luck.
Yeah.
Right, anyway, that's it now. That's it today. So I just want to, I just want to, on behalf of everybody, thank Richard for getting everybody, wanting to do something about Watchtower. Richard, I think you've done your job now. Well done.
Fantastic.
Um,
Well done, Richard.
well done. I've
Bravo.
got to be well done. Got to be. He's done better than any of the rest of us. Well done, Rich. We're proud of you.
Did you get over the
And
Jehovah's Witnesses?
well, I
I'll
think you probably,
ask you tonight. I'll ask tonight when you got
yeah,
more
obviously.
time.
Obviously the class tonight, and don't forget you're gonna put up part of the deposit for this thing on the 27th of September, Barry. I think we should go ahead and that would be absolutely brilliant. And would it be appropriate if we designed the pop-up? Would that just be childish?
No.
Because we could,
Yes,
we could have,
probably. It'd be more, let's make it fun, but I'm sure we can brainstorm all kinds of fun ideas. Because we got to do more than book the room. And we got to decide who we want to invite and,
Yeah.
what we want to accomplish, but we want to have fun and we want to eat.
Yeah.
It being a feast after all.
Oh.
bloody hell. Well, actually, Pauline's already offered to make 50 sandwiches. Thank you, Pauline. And also, Pauline's going to get the jelly molds out, so that's good. Thank you, Pauline. God, Pauline's so good at doing this.
It'll be,
Do
yeah.
sausage and pineapple on sticks.
Yay.
And cheese. I do
Yes.
that.
Just little, what they call them.
Owl.
We'll all have to buy
We
it.
should have towel.
Oh, yeah.
All right, then. Well, we're going to leave that for now. To give up.
Hey, Saint Helen is Constantine the Great's mother.
Yes.
Actually, Kate, hang on a minute. Forget about the pop-up idea, right? Which we could do, but let's not do it, because I think that's just we're playing at their game, and it, but
Well, yes,
I
there's
think
so many other things we can do and should do. So
why don't we call it
Boy.
the museum,
Good
Barry
boy.
and district get together.
St. Berwick's feast.
Well,
Yeah.
hang on a minute. We've got to have a sponsor for this. So the sponsor is Barry and District get together, and it's the Feast of St. Barrack. Job done.
Yeah. Yay.
Yeah.
I have something about today's topic, though, if I might
on.
add.
Go on.
Lambethary isn't in between Langcarven and Penmark, but I've had a think, and of course,
It's not. It's
Lambethary-
along the coast. It's along the coast on the road to.
I know exactly where it
Charleston.
is. I used to live in Langcarven, and the thing
Yeah.
about it is that Lambethary has no church, but
No.
Langcarven and Penmark do. Have Church in Wales churches. And looking at the map, Lambethary is almost as far as you can go away and still sort of be in the parish, if you see what I mean. So it was probably convenient and no embarrassment, no nothing,
Yeah.
I would have thought, because they're a community themselves, the Catholics and the Irish there all together. So it's nice for them to meet up, I suppose, like they're almost in semi-private, if you like.
Got you.
To walk
It's-
past the proddies.
Oh yeah, it's the type of place to go. Exactly. Right. Okay. So is that your contribution, Kate?
Yes, but I'd be also curious to have those figures again for the number of Irish. in
Oh
those
right.
places.
For when? What figures do you want?
The Irish immigrants in Langcarven, Penmark, and Merthyr Devon. You
Yeah.
have numbers.
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
it's
it'd be-
There seem
16 in
more.
Merthyr Devon, I think.
Yeah.
But
Right,
it was
okay.
60 somewhere.
Right. Hang on.
Yeah.
And let's give the figure. So basically, we've got next comes by Barry with 30, right? So we've got Merthyr Devon 16, Bomveston 12, Pendoilen 10, and Porthkerry 7.
Oh, I'm sorry, slow down. I'm sorry, I got all confused there. Oh, Pendoilen, that far away. Okay.
Right. So in other words, Penmark and Langcarven head the list, each account for about 70 Irish migrants in 1861. Penmark and Langcarven, 70 Irish migrants, 1861.
Hmm.
Well,
Each?
hang on a minute. Let's read this. Penmark and Langcarven head the list, each accounting for about 70 Irish
each.
migrants combined. No,
Wow.
combined.
Oh, it says each accounting.
Each.
Each
Oh,
means 70 each, doesn't it?
sorry, I had my dyslexia. Sorry. Yeah, each. Yeah, so 70 each. Yeah, sorry.
Details. You're doing great. That's
Yeah.
fascinating. But 30 in Barry,
Yeah.
well, it's all
Yeah.
that agriculture. They were all working on the land there. I think there was
No,
still, there was still
30,
some mills.
no, 30 in Cannockston by Barry, 30 in Cannockston.
13.
Right.
Okay.
No, 30 in Cannockston.
Oh, wow.
30
Well, those were the ones that would have come over
and 3 in
probably
Barry, 3 in
after the
Barry,
famine.
30 in Cannockston.
Of course, that makes sense. That makes sense.
We
Is that-
always knew that Cannockston was in league with the devil when we were in Barry, right? We always knew it.
This book I'm reading, it's about the play, the famine, and there's there's mention of people going to Newport, Liverpool. I think they might have said Barry as well. On the, they sent grain over. They sent grain over, and someone asked if some people could go back. So wherever the grain came from, they sent some people back. Not a lot, maybe about 100. But
Mhm.
Liverpool, Newport. So it was in. Anyway, I'll get a bit more.
Okay, please,
I get a bit more
Interesting, my goodness.
please do. Right, okay then. Anything else that Kate or Ruth wants to say?
No.
Oh, just Castle Farm. What was the number for Castle Farm?
2. But they were servants.
Right, and Pendoilen?
Pendoilen 10, Porthkerry 7, Bomveston 12.
Bonboston 12.
But Merthyr Devon, the village of Merthyr Devon, is interesting because there's 16.
Yeah.
So by the top of my head, if Richard could confirm or not confirm.
Do you know, I haven't got those numbers. I'm so slow.
Hang on a minute. It'd be interesting to know because the population in Cannockston seems quite high. Right.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to get the number is actually in the Barry book of population. Hang on a minute. We can put the figures in there. Right. Anything you'd like to say, Anne, while I'm clipping through this book?
No, it's just I've always been interested in that period and how Catholicism came over to this country, but also why it went, because we were all Catholic at one time, and then after the succession, we were all Protestant. Oh no, the royalty, so it was just illegal in some areas, like there were recusants, they were called, who used to practice in secret in
Yes, exactly.
particularly the border country between Ireland, between Wales and England.
Exactly.
Stretches, Lou.
Anyway, thanks for that, Anne. I'm just going to say that the population on this census graph from 1861 in Cannockston, the population was 275. So 30 Catholics there is about 1/12 of the population, isn't it? And then Barry has a population of just over 75, and in 1861, from this graph, more like 80 odd or whatever, but 1861, and that's got a population of 3, so basically insignificant. Merthyr Devon, interestingly enough, with a Catholic population of 16, the population of Merthyr Devon is about 140. So you know, that's quite, that's about 10th, isn't it? So right, okay then. Right, finally, Richard, is there anything you want to say before we finish?
Yeah, I've got plenty.
Go on then.
Oi,
Still got the piece. Carl knows some of this anyway.
oi.
Chap.
Ruth,
writes
Ruth, shut up.
He writes in the paper in 1891. He does a bit of a tour around Barry and the Vale. So he comes up, he ends up in Cadoxton, and he puts a piece in about that near Cadoxton Church, there was a wayside cross. And people would make their way to it at a funeral. They'd lay the corpse at the base of the cross, say a few prayers, and then off to the church. But he sort of put in that how the people at the time, this is 300 years after the Reformation and everything,
Mm.
and these people are still keeping up Catholic traditions
Mm,
with wayside crosses.
Mm.
it's interesting, is it?
Oh yes, it's still the same tradition. It's a very
Yeah.
similar tradition.
So then this chap carries on then. So it's really well sort of related to what Carl said, and he's got, I may add here too, that Father Highland
Mm.
has a chalice dated 1628,
Oh.
still recently used at Holy Mass at Penmark, when a
Oh.
priest from Cardiff journeyed thither once in 6 months to visit the scattered flock in the hamlets around.
Mm.
So that all goes in with your stuff, Carl.
The one thing that doesn't go in is that when you say once every 6 months, we're given the impression that you know, it's every like week or whatever, you know.
Well,
Hmm.
according to him, it was like this is 1891. So when he's
Right, okay.
back a few years, so he's not, you know, he's
Right, because he could actually be talking about, yeah, well, we'll give it that. Yeah, let's just not disagree with any of this. Yeah, I agree. That's really good, Richard.
Oh.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I see the other bit as well, isn't it? That they've got a side chapel in St. Helens, and the altar stone came from Highlight Church.
Right.
Yes, hang on a minute.
Excavated.
Highlight Church. Yeah, I was. Hang on. Let me get this. Let me get this in my head. There was. Yes, actually, that's actually in here. Richard, we'll finish on that. That is actually in here because Howard Thomas is mentioned. You've more or less quoted directly what's in here,
Yeah.
Richard. So it is in here. Howard Thomas after his excavations at
Oh.
Highlight Church in the 1960s.
Right.
Richard is precisely right in what he says. It is actually mentioned there. Howard Thomas actually donated it. And it is in here. I can't figure out where it is, but yeah, what Richard says, that wonderful piece of stone is actually at the church today. So they got a piece of history in there as well.
So that's like pre-Reformation, is it?
Yeah, pre-Reformation. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
So
Because the altar
Anything
stone
else?
on it at Merthyr Devon, with the
Mm.
Reformation, they took the altar stone out and stuck it over the well.
Oh.
Yes.
And when it was
right.
later
Yeah.
on for the restoration, they found it was the altar stone. And I think
Oh,
it's been returned to the church.
right. Oh, that's good.
Richard is correct. And Richard, if there's anything else you want to say, find it whilst I try to find this quote.
That's about all I've
Um,
got really on the.
What time is it now? Oh, it's quarter to one.
Yeah, what Richard
Well,
said
on
is
my
right.
computer.
It's in this book somewhere. I can't find it at this minute, but yeah, he is right. Right. So, anybody else want to say anything else other than the fact that it's been a great class, and Pete had to go because he wasn't feeling too well, so I'm going to give him a call after this class. So, anything, I could be in touch with Ruth and Kate about this week, and we'll sort of go from there.
Mm.
And
Okay,
anyone want to say anything else?
No, thank you.
All right with me.
It's been grand. Give our
Okay,
love to peace.
I will.
Mm.
I've
All
been
right then. Well, has anyone else got anything else to say? Richard, Anne, or Ruth, or Kate?
No.
No, no.
I've been going
No.
down the motorway to Landock, so I've been missing Barry.
Oh.
Fair,
So
fair
I
enough.
can't work it out to get there on a Thursday yet.
No, don't worry. We'll
That's
sort it out. We're making
visiting
plans.
time. But let me
We-
know if there's anything I can do, Kate, you know, for this event.
Okay, sure. We've got
Yeah,
to
we'll
decide what we're
get
going to do,
together
what it's going to be
sometime.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Oh,
cheerio. Speak
Bye,
soon.
girl.
My
Bye.
absolute pleasure. If nobody else has got anything else to say, I'm going to thank you. It's been a blast today. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Ruth,
Love you
Kate, and
all.
Don. And thank you, Peter. I'll speak to you soon. Take care. See you, Pauline. I'll see you two
Bye.
tonight as well. Actually,
Bye.
see Kate
See you
and
later.
Richard tonight. Take care.
Bye.
Then,
Take
bye.
care, guys. Night night. Thank you. Night night. Night. Well, night. Goodbye. I'll see you soon. That was tried to get Anne. She is on her way. We were delayed today because messages. Trying to get Anne. She is on her way. Try to get Anne. She is on her way. No response on 1, 2, 3. Close the box now. Anyway, thank you very much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join. Press the join button. Take care.